Perfect. Cool. All right. Yeah. Hello and welcome everyone to today's Data World Friday. Maybe shortly up front, today I will do the session. My name is Lorenz Kindling. I'm a senior BI consultant at Scalefree. Normally, Michael Olschimke does the sessions on Friday, but today he's not available. And maybe before we start, what is the Data World Friday? Essentially, the Data World Friday is a weekly meeting we do here at Scalefree, where you, the audience, have the possibility to submit questions up front. And we always pick a question out of our question backlog and try to answer this question. Today, we didn't have a real, or it wasn't a real question. Essentially, the thing written in the form. You find the form on our website. I also have a link at the end of this presentation where you can submit questions. Was essentially Data World 2.0 to tackle GDPR. So essentially, I made it to why Data World 2.0, or maybe how to tackle GDPR with Data World 2.0. And I just want to go a little bit over the process, what we do with GDPR and Data Vault, and one thing you should really think about, which can make it a little bit more complex, but not impossible. So let's start with a short introduction. GDPR, I think all of you know it by now. I don't need to go into too much detail, but essentially it's the General Data Protection Regulation that came in place in 2018 from the European Union. And essentially, it offers a high-level protection regarding the personal data of European citizens. And there are some regulatory points. The most important, essentially, is that every human being, every person in the EU has a right to be forgotten. What does that mean? They can write an email to a company or fill out a form, or sometimes it's just a link to impose the right to be forgotten. So the company or the regulated entity needs to delete the data of this person, the personal data of this person. That really comes into play into data warehousing and data analytics, what we, the most of the audience, work with every day. And there are some things to keep in mind when storing GDPR data. Because the first thing is you don't want to delete everything. If you have a customer and he made a sale, you want to delete the personal attributes, but you maybe still want to keep some attributes that you're allowed to store. So maybe you're not allowed to store the name and the concrete address of this person, but maybe you're still allowed to store the region where the customer lived in. So what we do at Scalefree, or in general in Data Vault, is essentially we make satellite splits. Every one of you who knows Data Vault, I think, should know this concept. It's really, really simple. Essentially, in Data Vault, we split the data into three different kind of data. We have business keys that identify a business object. Then we have relationships, and we have attributes that describe, in the end, a business key. And normally when you store a business key, you create a hub. There you have all your business key in it, and then you create satellites with the describing attributes. And we make satellite splits based on different reasons. One of them is GDPR. So essentially you make a personal and a non-personal satellite. What does that do? Essentially you have one satellite where you have all the customer data that is non-personal. Maybe it's the region, maybe it's some technical descriptions of a customer, maybe it's something generated at your company, something that does not identify the person. In the end, these questions you need to ask your law team, right? They need to have an idea, what data am I allowed to store, even if the person uses their right to be forgotten, and which data I'm not allowed to store. And these data that you're not allowed to store, you put into the personal satellite. So here you have all the descriptive attributes, like the name of the person, maybe the street they live in, the email address. So everything you're not allowed to store of a person, essentially, when they want to be forgotten. So, and now the process is pretty simple. The customer comes in, he writes an email, he wants his data to be deleted, and then it's really simple. You just go into the personal satellite, delete the data of this person, or override it. There are different options. I would go with hard leads, but yeah, and then you still have the non-personal data here in the other satellite, so you can still identify this sale, maybe not to a person, but to some basic understanding. So you still know there was a sale, you still know maybe how much money generated or something like this, even though in the customer satellite there shouldn't be like the sales data itself, but you still know some information about this customer, but you don't know who this person is anymore. But you still can use some information for analytics, which is a huge benefit. So this is essentially the basic of GDPR and Data Vault. I think pretty simple. If you work with Data Vault, you should know this. One common pitfall we see at Scalefree, so what people often have problems with, or where essentially their GDPR process or concept starts to fail a little bit, is when you have business keys that are privacy relevant attributes. So for example, you have in the customer hub, you have the business key, right? If it's a customer number that has no connection to a person at all, it's fine, right? You just delete the data here. But if this customer number, the business key, or whatever you have as a business key, is a personal related attribute, like for example, the social security number, you need to change something of this model. And this is really important because, for example, let's take the case of the social security number. You are an insurance company. You use the social security number as a unique identifier for your customers, then you will get a problem. So for example, you have the US, so now some people might say, okay, it's hashed. I can just overwrite the value. I keep the hash, no problem. But you have some issues there because it's really easy in the end for stuff like this. For example, a social security number to create a rainbow table and generate all these different possible hash options. Why is that? Because a social security number always has the same structure essentially. It has 9 digits. You have an area code, a group number, and a serial number. And then it's really easy for you to write an algorithm that creates all these possible options and their hash keys, and then compare them to your hub, and you will still be able to identify this person or this social security number. So we do not rely on the hash key or hash diff in Data Vault for security. So this would not be a valid model if your business key in the hub is a personal identifiable attribute, because essentially you would delete the record here, but you would still have the business key that has a connection here that you can essentially rebuild to get the information of one customer, and then you could still map this information to a certain person. So that becomes an issue. So what do we do with that? First of all, we would not recommend to use personal attributes as a business key. If there is any other option, always go for the other option. I think in 90% of times it's the better option to choose another business key if possible. If you don't have another option, it's not a problem, but the model gets a little bit more complex. I mean, you can already see it here on your screen. The first thing you need to know is what we do is we essentially create artificial hubs with artificial numbers. So what does that mean? Here you can see an example. You have a customer hub, and now we would create 2 roles in this example. You don't need to call it a roles, but what you for sure need is these artificial hubs. And the artificial hubs are in the end these 2 hubs that you see, the customer car insurance hub and the customer healthcare insurance hub. And these hubs, they have an artificially generated number, and they map through a link to the social security number. So essentially you have a link entry which maps between the social security number and the car insurance generated number. So when now your customer comes, let's say he's a customer, he has a healthcare insurance with your company, and he also have a car insurance at your company. And now this person wants his data or he quits the car insurance and he wants his car insurance data to be deleted. But he still stays a customer with the healthcare insurance. Essentially, what happens is pretty simple. You know this customer, you identify, okay, the link, we connect to this artificial number in our hub, and this number relates to these two satellite entries, or however many satellite entries you will have. And then we go into the private satellite again, delete the personal data of this guy, and we also delete the connection between the social security number and this artificial number. Now we still have the social security number here, and we still have the data here because he still is a customer of our healthcare insurance, and we are still allowed to keep this data. So first we tackle this problem, and now the question becomes, okay, now this person wants to be also quits his healthcare insurance, and now he wants to us to delete all the data, right? You would need to talk to your lawyer. When do we need to delete it, and so on and so on. But essentially, what happens now is the same we did before. We go to the other side. We go to the customer healthcare private satellite. Delete the data here. I hope you can see my mouse because then it's easier to follow. And you delete the record in the link. So essentially, again, you delete the connection between the social security number and this artificial hub number. Now, because both of them are deleted, you're not allowed to keep this social security number anymore. We also delete the entry in the hub. Why couldn't we do that before? We couldn't do that before because we would get an insufficient data vault model. Essentially, now we just have the hub entries gone and the link entries are gone. Everything is fine, but we still have these two artificial hubs which have these artificial numbers which map to these satellites, essentially. So you can still identify that we had a customer in the healthcare hub, and the customer had some non-personal data, and we can still do our analytics, and the model is still complete, but it maps to some artificial number. So there's no possibility to get back to the social security number because we completely deleted this. The same goes for the car insurance, right? There is no connection anymore. The number is gone. We deleted it. We couldn't do that here in this model because essentially, if we would had deleted the entry here, we would have also to delete the entry in the non-personal satellite, because if we don't do that, we get an invalid data vault model. We have an hash key here that describes a customer that is not in the customer hub anymore. If we just mask the business key, what I told you before, you can still construct a rainbow table. So it's really important to, if you have a GDPR business key, to introduce this artificial hubs, because you will get an invalid data vault model. Or you need to delete everything, and then you don't have the information anymore about this customer at all, even the one you are allowed to store. So essentially, this is the solution for that. We introduce these artificial hubs. They have artificial numbers. We can keep those. They map to a private and a non-private satellite, and we just delete the entry in the link. We delete the entry in the hub when the time comes. So we don't have the social security number, but we still have the connection between the artificial number and the artificial numbers in the hub, because we introduced these artificial hubs essentially. I hope that makes sense. I know sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming when you first see this. This is why we would not recommend this to you when you have other options. If you have another business key available that is not a personal attribute, go for this. Your model will become much less complex, and it will be much easier for you. If you need to introduce that, so maybe sometimes there's no other option, right? And it's no problem to have that in your model from time to times. I think it gets a problem when you have that everywhere, but yeah, what you should also think about is not use maybe the sequence number, or maybe not in order as your source delivery comes in, because then it's also possible to maybe track it back. So we would maybe go for UUID. These ones are SHA-1 generated, or you go with a sequence number but completely random. That is important, so you can't track it back. Yeah, I think this is the biggest pitfall with GDPR and Data Vault 2.0. I think the rest is pretty straightforward in GDPR. And one of the things that really makes Data Vault a big benefit for organizations, because it's really easy to deal with issues like GDPR. And the satellite splits, we do not only use them for GDPR. I mean, most of you probably know we also use them for example, rate of change, even though you don't see that much anymore. You can have it for security, so different security leveled satellites. Yes, so these satellite splits are a really strong feature of Data Vault, and you should always think about it. If there are still any questions, feel free to write me on LinkedIn or yeah, connect with me. Lorenz Kindling, I already said it, or put in a question in the Data Vault Friday. We have this form. Just scalefree.com/Data Vault Friday. There you will find the form where you can submit questions. And in general, we do some really interesting webinars. I know we also had this topic before, so feel free to check out our website for that. Check out YouTube. We have a lot of uploads from these Data Vault Fridays. Maybe there's already an answer to your question. And yeah, next time I think Michael will be back, and I hope I could give you some insights and help a little bit. We also have the Data Vault Innovators community. This is like a public community for free. Everybody can join. We do with our partners in Cognition from Australia. And there you can just find regular postings about everything related to data. Oh, also Data Vault Friday. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be Data Vault specific. You can also ask general questions about data, big data, data projects, whatever comes to your mind. We always try to answer these questions as good as possible. And yeah, the community is for the same thing essentially. Lots of people on there. You can ask questions. They post interesting stuff. We even have classes there. So feel free to check it out. It's for free. It's pretty cool community. I'm there active a lot as well, and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much for joining. And yeah, have a great Friday, great Christmas, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the time with your family and a good start to the new year. See you soon. Thanks, guys.